sex, religion, and disabilities in the same sentence, and in a film that they connected in a way that it seems so normal. How difficult was creating that thing?
Well, I think that I really rode on the back of Mark O'Brien's account of his own experience. And I think that certainly when I read his article, that's what sprang to mind. You know, my goodness, what a volatile mixture of elements this was. And somehow I think sex and religion go very easily together. I think they've been involved with each other since prehistory.
In a totally different way, but yes, you're right.
Yes, but in the film itself, I think Mark says, you know, sex is one of the major themes of the Bible, and I think he's correct. I think disability and sex have never really been featured before, but it seemed the most natural thing in the world. I mean, I think it's like when you're with disabled people, the elephant in the room is maybe the subject of sex and intimacy, and that was the essential appeal of his narrative to me.
The main character always says so easily the word love. I love you. I love you. Why do you think that people nowadays cannot easily say this word?
Well, I think that's probably a problem with men, isn't it? My wife has to blackmail me in order to make me say it. I think there's a sort of a real cringe problem with men. Mark was also a poet, though, and I think that his mind had wings. I mean, he really did live in a world of imagination, where the things which were very hard for him to attain were very easy for him to put into language. That somehow a lot of his poetry had to do with the things that he craved and wished for, that other people just take for granted.
Poetry is always present in the film, even if it's absent. So what's the most poetic thing that anybody has done for you in your life?
My God, that really is a trick question, isn't it? I think marrying me was pretty poetic on my wife's part. I'm not sure she sees it as quite the same, but I would recollect that. And having children is pretty powerful emotional stuff too. You know, can we meet again in about a year and I'll give you a slightly more specific answer to that question?
Of course.
Okay.
There's a phrase in the film that I like it because I'm Greek, and nowadays with Germany we have a lot of problem, is that Germany is the only place in the world that they don't have a sense of humor. Could you comment on that?
Yes, well, it wasn't a comment that went over with everyone in Zurich, you know, because there were quite a few German visitors there. And the Swiss Germans thought it was very funny, but the real Germans in the audience, I think, were wondering, what on earth does he mean? I don't know why I said that. I think that what I was reflecting was Mark's negative feelings about losing this kind of I mean, he was obsessed with this young woman, and he thought that the idea of Germany swallowing her up was the worst thing in the world, and that was the point of it, to try and dissuade her from going to Germany. And I guess for him, also one of the worst things in the world is the not having a sense of humour. But I hope that it doesn't really... I hope they don't censor that in Germany.
If you could get just 1 minute, hypothetically, with a God that has a sense of humor, what would you ask him?
Whether he feels guilty about his mother?
That's a very good one. How was working with Helen Hunt? Because especially her part in the film is a little bit tricky. Is not a saint. She's not evil. She's not nowhere even in the middle.
She's complex.
But, yeah, it has this kind of complexity.
Well, you know, it's a very it is a kind of a paradoxical character. One who is on the one hand representing middle class family values, and on the other hand doing something really unconventional. I think that what I saw in Helen was the ability to embrace this complexity and really build a character out of it. And one of the tasks of the film, after all, was to explain to the audience what on earth is a sex surrogate, and to give that character sort of some legitimacy and dignity. I don't think I had to work very much with Helen. I think she understood it from the moment she read the script. And I think that one of the things that we decided to do, which would normally be very risky, is to work without rehearsal. In other words, to use the strangeness between her and John, the fact that they really didn't know each other, to try and build into the film.
I won't give any spoilers, but the last scene of the film with the cat, it really took my breath away, because it was a kind of conclusion that you were closing the eyes to the audience, that they felt a little bit sad, or they had second thoughts about if it was an honest film or a less honest film. So how did you came up with that idea?
I think I don't, if there is a science to screenwriting, I don't know it. Other than I try, when I'm starting a script, to have a picture of what is on the last page. I found the idea of the cat so intriguing that it was really an element in his life. There was this cat that visited him, that I thought that I would use the cat as bookends, that I would start the story and finish the story with the cat. It's a very simple image to create, but very powerful. I mean, you don't expect the cat to be a mourner, and yet it had this kind of sense that the cat was this kind of lonely sentinel sitting on top of his iron lung, and it was kind of satisfying to create a very simple image that had a strong but unexpected emotional meaning.